I woke up from a car crash with amnesia. 2 men came to my hospital room. One was supposedly my childhood friend, and the other was the guy I was in love with. Mark pushed Eric in front of me and said, "This is the guy you're into." I looked at the man's sharp, handsome face and thought, not bad. I've got good taste. So I started seriously dating him. But one day, after catching us in a passionate embrace, Mark grabbed me, his eyes bloodshot, and wouldn't let go. "Leo, the person you love is me." It was the 3rd day since I woke up from the car crash. I still couldn't remember anything from before. My memory was shrouded in a thick fog no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't touch it or push it away. Those 2 guys came again. The day I woke up, they introduced themselves. One was Eric, the other was Mark. They said we were close, but I had no idea just how close. "By the way, Leo, I never told you before," Mark said. "You and I grew up together. We're really good friends." He put a heavy emphasis on the word friends. I nodded. As for Eric, Mark pushed the person next to him toward my bed. "This is the guy you're in love with." I blinked, stunned. Unlike Mark's sunny, cheerful good looks, the man named Eric had sharper features, an intense, arresting kind of handsome. I guess that really is my type. But since I couldn't remember a thing, I asked hesitantly, "Really?" "Of course. Why would I lie to you?" Mark said urgently. "Leo, you were crazy about him. You gave him so many gifts and wanted to stick to him every single day. You have amnesia now and can't remember, but you have to trust me. I would never lie to you. After all, we grew up together." I thought Mark's reaction was a bit weird, but I didn't dwell on it and just grunted in agreement. Mark let out a sigh of relief and smiled as if a huge weight had been lifted. He patted Eric's shoulder and said, "Well, I'll let you 2 talk. I won't be a third wheel. I got something to do, so I'll head out." Mark left. Now it was just me and Eric in the hospital room. I met his gaze. His dark, quiet eyes seemed to burn with an emotion I couldn't understand. I looked away, flustered, and my hands instinctively fiddled with the blanket. "Have some water." He poured a glass of warm water and handed it to me. I took it. "Thanks." After a couple of sips, I held the glass and asked, "What about you? What about me? Do you like me?" I stared, unblinking, at the ripples in the water, which trembled with my hand. Waiting for his answer was more nerve-wracking than I expected. "I do," Eric said. "Leo, I like you." The man's voice was low and slightly husky, and it made my heart tremble. "So," I bit my lip, "are we dating?" "Not yet." He took the glass from my clenched hands. "We're not together?" I looked down. If we liked each other, why weren't we together? Did we not like each other enough, or was there some other reason? As my mind raced, Eric leaned in closer. "I was about to ask you out, but then you had your accident." I looked up and met his eyes. He continued, "I don't know if now is a good time, but will you be my boyfriend?" I stared at the handsome face so close to mine, and my heart skipped a beat. Then, my eyes curved into a smile. "Okay." During my days in the hospital, Eric took care of me. As for Mark, my supposed childhood friend, he didn't show up again after the 1st and 3rd days. During that time, my roommates came to visit me a few times. One of them, a guy named William, was especially warm and concerned about me. Eric said he was a good friend of mine. My parents are divorced and both live abroad. When they heard about my car accident, they just offered a few words of concern over the phone. I didn't tell them about my amnesia. Subconsciously, I didn't want to talk to them too much. After I was discharged, Eric took me back to school. We both go to North City University and are sophomores this year. We have different majors, though. He's in computer science and I'm an art major. But our dorms are coincidentally in the same building, just on different floors. I still had all my academic knowledge, but I had no memory of anything that had ever happened to me. Once we were on campus, Eric patiently explained the layout to me. "Turn left up ahead and walk about 200 meters, and you'll hit the school library." He added, "Of course, it's okay if you don't remember. I'll be with you as you get used to everything again." People were coming and going around us. The sounds of conversations, car horns, and the wind all mixed into a disquieting clamor. I still couldn't remember anything. Almost unconsciously, I reached out and took the hand of the person beside me. Eric stopped walking. I blinked, realizing what I'd done, and asked in a small voice, "Sorry, but can I hold your hand?" I heard a soft chuckle from above me. Suddenly, my hand was gripped back with a force that I couldn't break. Of course, Eric walked me back to my dorm. At the door, he stopped. "Leo, I won't go in." My gaze fell on our intertwined hands, and I slowly let him go. "Okay." The man reached up and stroked my hair. "Text me if you need anything." That night, I lay in bed, scrolling through my phone. For some reason, I had Mark's chat pinned, but not Eric's. And when I clicked into his chat, our history was short, easily scrolled through in a few swipes. I'd asked Eric about it in the hospital. He said he had made me mad recently, so I deleted our chat history. Just then, a message from Eric popped up. His chat was now the only one I had pinned, so the notification stood out. "Good night, Leo, see you tomorrow." His handsome, reassuring face appeared in my mind. I replied, "Good night, see you tomorrow." I had an 8 a.m. class the next day. I'm used to waking up early anyway. I got up and made plans with Eric to grab breakfast. He confidently led me to a specific food stall. They had my favorite savory pancakes and shumai. "I remember you used to like this," Eric said, handing me the breakfast. "Try it, see if you still like it." I took it and took a big bite. "I remember this. I do like it." Eric watched me, his eyes reflecting the image of me foolishly scarfing down my food. I felt my cheeks flush and looked away, my heart racing under his intense gaze. Our classes were in different buildings. After breakfast, he walked me to my classroom, and we agreed to have lunch together before he left for his own class. Soon after, William rushed into the classroom just as the bell rang, sitting in the spot I'd saved for him. Halfway through the lecture, he suddenly leaned in and asked me, "Hey, when did you and Eric get so close?" I froze. "We weren't close before? Were you?" He scratched his head, looking confused. "Didn't you used to go to the CS department all the time to find your childhood friend, Mark?" He trailed off, looking like he wanted to say more but held back. I blinked, a strange feeling creeping into my heart. "But," I said, "the person I like is Eric. We're together now." "What?" William's voice shot up. Realizing we were in class, he quickly quieted down. He lowered his voice and asked, "You're telling me you're dating Eric? The CS department's heartthrob, the guy everyone says isn't into guys or girls, the rumored asexual Eric?" I nodded hesitantly. "That's him." Back in the hospital, Eric had said he didn't mind if our relationship went public. Besides, William was my good friend, there was no hiding it from him. I just didn't expect Eric to have that kind of reputation. A heartthrob? With that face, it made sense. Holy crap. William stared blankly for a few seconds, his expression shifting rapidly. Then, a look of sudden understanding crossed his face. "I get it. So all those times you went to see Mark, it was just an excuse to get close to Eric." William winked at me. "Nice one, Leo. Even managed to land the great Eric. But it makes sense. You're so good looking, you're basically the prettiest boy in the art department. Guys from the athletics department are always trying to get your number." "Prettiest boy?" I frowned. "You're kidding, right? I'm a guy." He chuckled. "You're so handsome, and your skin is so fair. That's what everyone says." I didn't reply, my thoughts drifting. Was it like William said? Did I hang around Mark just to get closer to Eric? I couldn't remember, so I decided to just push it out of my mind. Over the next little while, I spent a lot of time with Eric. I gradually became more familiar with the school and the people around me. Eric had more classes than I did, but he spent almost all his free time with me. However, maybe because of my amnesia, even though we were officially in a relationship, there was always a subtle awkwardness between us. Basically, compared to other couples, we were a lot more distant. I knew he was being considerate of my feelings, but he was so good to me, so gentle. I felt a little bad. I was being too dramatic. That evening, we went off campus for dinner. It was already 9 by the time we got back to school. The temperature dropped at night, and a cold wind made me shiver. I tightened my jacket. Thankfully, we quickly reached my dorm building. I stopped and tugged on the hem of Eric's shirt. He stopped immediately. His eyes were gentle. "What's wrong, Leo?" I looked down, my voice as quiet as a mosquito. "A hug." He seemed to freeze for a moment, his voice turning husky. "What?" Feeling a bit anxious, I forgot about my blushing face and looked up at him. "I want a hug." Before I could finish, the man wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into his embrace. His chest was warm, his heartbeat steady. The clean, crisp scent that was uniquely Eric filled my senses. One of his hands was around my waist, the other on the back of my head. He held me almost tightly. I leaned quietly against his shoulder, waves crashing in my heart. I don't know how long passed before Eric finally let me go. There weren't many people around at this time. But as I looked up, I saw someone unexpected behind Eric. Mark was standing about 10 meters away. He was staring at us, unblinking, with a strange expression on his face. Someone saw us after all. But at least it was someone I knew. My cheeks burned, and I gave him a polite smile. I didn't expect Mark to stride over, his steps hurried. "Why are you two together?" he said, his expression displeased. "What are you doing out so late?" He started with 2 accusatory questions. I found it a bit strange and subconsciously frowned. But his reaction, hadn't Eric told him we were together? Just as I was thinking, my hand was taken by the person next to me. Eric's face was calm as he said coolly, "We just got back from a date. Is there a problem?" Mark was stunned. "You two?" I was getting tired and didn't want to waste time talking out here, so I shifted closer to Eric, pressing against his shoulder. I said to Mark, "Yeah, we're together." Mark was the one who told me I liked Eric in the first place. He shouldn't be too surprised to find out we were dating now. But Mark's reaction was very odd. He first stared at our joined hands, then moved his gaze to my face. He seemed to be searching for something in my expression. He was stone-faced, but his eyes glinted with a dark light, and I just stared back at him calmly. "Is that so?" His voice dropped strangely, and a sarcastic smirk played on his lips. "Well, I wish you two a long and happy life together." I didn't dwell on the encounter with Mark. From what William said and the information in my chat history, it seemed I used to contact him often. We must have been close. But since I woke up, I felt like he was avoiding me. The last time I saw him at the hospital, he left in a hurry, almost cheerfully, like he had finally gotten rid of a major nuisance that had been bothering him for a long time. Naturally, I wasn't going to chase after him and make a pest of myself. Now that Eric and I were together, I had even less reason to seek him out. On Monday afternoon, I had a Gen Ed class that I took with Eric. It was the only class we had together. Shortly after we sat down, I was whispering with Eric when a few people filled the empty row in front of us. There was a bang as the guy in front of me sat down. I looked up and he happened to turn around. It was Mark. He nodded at me as if to say hello. I nodded back in response. "Hey Leo," the guy next to Mark called out to me. "How come you're not sitting with Mark today?" He was probably a friend of Mark's, but I couldn't remember him. I shook my head without answering. Mark, sitting in front, lightly tapped the desk, his tone impatient. "Zach, class is starting." "You got it." The guy turned back with a grin. "Leo," Eric squeezed my hand, "let's go out to eat tonight. You mentioned you wanted hot pot a couple of days ago." The man deliberately lowered his voice, his tone taking on a husky, almost moist quality that was incredibly alluring. My attention was quickly diverted. "Okay, Eric, I also want to stop by that dessert shop from last time for a small cake." Class had already started, so I whispered to him. "Sure. Should we get milk tea too?" "Yes, please." Suddenly, there was a soft but audible TSK from the row in front of us. I glanced up in confusion but didn't pay it any mind. As we were leaving campus that evening, Eric said he'd left something in his dorm and needed to go back and get it. "No one's in the dorm right now. Want to come back with me, Leo? You can check out our room." I nodded. Okay. Eric's desk was incredibly neat and tidy, with a black and gray color scheme. But in a prominent spot, there was a vibrantly colored painting. I paused. This is something you painted for me, Leo," Eric said from behind me, He was standing right behind me, his tall frame shadowing me, so close that our bodies were almost touching. My ears grew hot. A few seconds later, Eric reached up and touched my hair, then nonchalantly stepped back. I'm all set. Let's go. Okay. I let out a sigh of relief, and the doubts in my mind began to fade. The style was familiar, it was definitely my painting. I guess it was true. The person I liked was Eric. Time trickled by and life went on as usual. In my free time, I continued to hang out, study, and eat with Eric. Compared to the initial awkwardness, we could now hold hands and hug naturally and affectionately at any time. But I noticed that the frequency of my chance encounters with Mark had also increased. In the library, on the track, in the cafeteria, at club activities. Besides that one gen ed class, it turned out that I, Eric, and Mark had all joined the same club. During the occasional club activity, I would often feel an intense, unreadable gaze on me. When I turned to look, I would see Mark quickly averting his eyes, pretending nothing had happened. Feeling a squeeze on my hand, I instinctively looked up. Eric was looking down at me. No matter how many times I looked into those clear, deep eyes, I felt like I could get lost in them. Leo, wanna go see a movie this weekend? I snapped back to reality. Sure. The mall was bustling with people on the weekend. We chose a decent suspense action movie to watch. Inside the theater, the lights dimmed, leaving only the faint, flickering glow from the screen. Eric suddenly lowered his head to look at me. I swallowed the popcorn in my mouth and looked at him. What's wrong? Eric didn't answer. He just leaned in and pressed his lips to mine. He pulled back almost immediately, so fast that I didn't even have time to react. In the darkness, his gaze was scorching hot. You're so sweet, babe. My mind went buzz. I raised a hand to my lips, completely dazed. I was distracted for the rest of the movie and barely watched any of it. By the time it ended, the sky had already grown dark. I was walking down the street in a daze when I heard Eric's voice. I'm sorry, Leo. Did I scare you? No. Hearing the dejection in his voice, I stopped and looked up at him abruptly. I didn't feel it before, I stammered, my face beat red. It was too fast. Then, can we try again? I closed my eyes and managed to get out one word. Okay. My chin was lifted, and Eric leaned in and kissed me. Unlike the brief touch before, this time he deepened it forcefully. Our lips pressed together, tongues intertwining, hot and tender. A fierce passion replaced the gentle exploration, and the hand on my waist was as hot as our breaths. He kissed me for a long time. When he finally pulled away, I was a little breathless. He wrapped his arms around me, letting me rest my head on his chest to catch my breath. You're so good, babe. He called me that again. The breath I had just managed to steady instantly became ragged again. The deadline for the life drawing class assignment was in 3 weeks. It was about time I started working on it. But I still didn't have a suitable model. As I was struggling with this, a thought suddenly struck me. My boyfriend, Eric, was a perfect candidate right here. When I asked Eric, he agreed without hesitation. He just stared at me for a long time, a dark look swirling in his eyes. I was originally going to find a studio, but Eric said he had one at his house. That weekend, I brought my brushes and other materials to Eric's home. From the way he dressed and his daily habits, I could tell his family was well off. It was only when I got to his house that I realized he was much, much more than just well off. Standing before me was a luxurious mansion in a prime location, and Eric lived there alone. Of course, he usually lived on campus and rarely stayed here. There was a studio in the house, fully equipped with everything you could need. You could tell it had been thoughtfully designed. Why would Eric have such a professional art studio in his house? Did he like to paint too? I pushed the question out of my mind. In the studio, I set up my easel and looked at the man a meter away who had taken off his clothes and was wearing only a pair of briefs. Eric had an amazing body. He was well proportioned, with long legs and perfect symmetry. The lines of his muscles were smooth, and his 8-pack abs were firm and powerful. Paired with that sharp, handsome face, he looked like a meticulously carved work of art, radiating an indescribable sexiness. He was a perfect model. Do you need me to be fully nude? The man's deep voice broke my train of thought. My hand trembled. I quickly shook my head, my words unsteady. And no, this is fine. Forcing myself to push all the chaotic thoughts out of my head, I started to draw, stroke by stroke, on the paper. Knowing that Eric would be uncomfortable holding the same pose for a long time, I worked faster. Finally, after 3 hours, I was done. I quickly packed up my painting supplies and walked over. I'm finished. A small smile played on my lips. Thanks for your hard work, boyfriend. A sly glint flashed in the man's eyes. So, do I get a reward? Huh? I paused. What kind of gift do you want? Lately, Eric had been giving me gifts every few days. In comparison, I definitely wasn't reciprocating as often. I don't want a gift. As he spoke, he reached out and pulled me into his arms. My hand unavoidably touched his chest and his firm abs. It trembled as if I'd been burned. He chuckled softly. Like it? My face was unbelievably hot, and I didn't dare to look at him. I kept my head down and mumbled a soft yeah. Eric's smile widened. Want to touch it, then? I was incredibly torn. In the end, I couldn't resist the temptation. I placed my hand on his abs and gently caressed them. Felt amazing. Eric's breathing grew heavier. He held me tighter, then suddenly lowered his head and bit my earlobe, murmuring in a hoarse voice, "Babe." After that, I don't really remember how he carried me upstairs and pressed me onto the bed for a kiss. He kissed every inch of my body, making me tremble uncontrollably. Our breaths mingled as we completely lost ourselves in a sea of passion. We didn't go all the way, but we got pretty close. It was getting late, so we decided not to go back to school tonight. Eric carried me to the bathroom for a shower. Afterwards, I lay on the soft, large bed, feeling drowsy. In a sleepy haze, I felt him touching me again. I opened my eyes and saw that he had found some ointment and was about to apply it for me. My skin bruises easily. After all that activity, my thighs were sore and aching, and the insides were covered in a large red patch. It looked a little scary. Eric leaned over and gently applied the ointment. The slight stinging and tingling sensation made me let out a soft whimper. It's all red, Eric said, oblivious, blowing on my skin. Poor baby. I gritted my teeth, tears welling up in the corners of my eyes. The torturous process of applying the ointment finally ended. Eric slipped under the covers and expertly wrapped his arms around me. Go to sleep, babe. No class tomorrow morning. Enveloped in a familiar scent, I closed my eyes peacefully and soon fell into a deep sleep. Soon, a long weekend arrived. The club organized a team-building event, a 3-day, 2-night mountain hike. Eric and I hadn't made any plans for the break anyway. I didn't know if I had ever done something like this before, but when I heard the news, I was quite interested. Plus, Eric was good friends with the person in charge of the club. So we agreed without much thought. A total of 12 people went, 5 girls and 7 guys. And surprisingly, Mark was there too. When he saw me, he even came over to say hi. His tone was familiar. Leo, I remember you used to hate these kinds of activities. It's fine, I said, blinking. I leaned a little closer to Eric and replied calmly, I'm actually quite interested. Babe here. Just then, Eric placed a baseball cap on my head, adjusting it to the right size and straightening it. I looked up at him. He praised me, so handsome. I loved it when he complimented me. His praise was always so sincere and natural, it made my heart happy. Eric was wearing the same style of hat in a different color. My eyes crinkled into a smile. You're handsome too. Suddenly, someone bumped into Eric, slinging an arm over his shoulder and teasing, Eric, my man, when did you get so sappy? Before Eric could answer, the guy looked at me and added, Oh, I see, you're only sappy with your boyfriend. The newcomer was Eric's good friend and the club leader, Hank. Eric glanced at him. You knew the answer already. Just then, a voice cut in abruptly, Senior, are you not feeling well? Why do you look so pale? I turned my head and saw it was a freshman named Alex. He and Mark seemed to be close, and his question was directed at Mark. I hadn't even noticed Mark was still standing next to me. It's nothing. Mark replied, a hint of annoyance in his brow. He walked over, took Alex's hand, and his voice softened instantly. Alex, let's go over there first. Their relationship seems a little unusual. A tiny spark of curiosity ignited in me, but nothing more. When we reached the starting point of the trail, our well-equipped group began the hike under the guidance of our guide. Eric and I moved at the same pace, chatting about meaningless things. The scenery around us slowly changed, and the wind that brushed past ruffled my hair, bringing a cool sensation. At first, it wasn't so bad, but as the mountain path grew more rugged and uneven, and after we had already walked for several kilometers, everyone started to feel the strain. Eric's stamina was much better than mine. He deliberately slowed his pace to match mine, pulling me up steep slopes and stopping to remind me to rest. Even though it was tiring, having the person I liked by my side and seeing so much stunning natural scenery made the trip completely worth it. Finally, we reached our destination for the day, which was also where we would camp for the night. Nestled in the lush mountains was a crystal-clear lake. The lake's surface was as calm as a mirror, with a thin layer of mist rising from it. Unknown colorful wildflowers dotted the lush green meadow. Behind it were rolling mountain ranges, their peaks faintly visible through the swirling clouds and mist. It was serene and mysterious. I hadn't seen such a directly stunning and magnificent view in a long time, and I was a bit mesmerized. Eric lifted me with both hands and sat me down on a large boulder. Then he said, Leo, rest here for a bit. I'm going to find a good spot to set up camp. I nodded, planning to rest for 5 minutes before going to find him. At the same time, I took out my Polaroid camera to adjust it. After a little while, Mark suddenly walked over. Leo, are you serious? Hearing his question, I snapped back to reality, confused. What? Being with Eric, are you serious about it? He said. You haven't gotten your memory back. How can you be so sure he's the one you like? I glanced at him for a couple of seconds. Weren't you the one who told me I liked him? Besides, I've already confirmed it. I like him. Every moment I spent with Eric, I was happy. Mark froze for a moment, then let out a soft scoff, his face darkening. Is that so? He changed the subject. By the way, Alex is good-looking and has a cute personality. I quite like him. I had already guessed as much, so I wasn't surprised to hear him say it. I nodded faintly. Congratulations, then. Mark's expression grew even darker, his tone cold. Yeah. Just don't come crying to me when you regret it. I couldn't quite understand why Mark suddenly came over to tell me this. Regret what? What was there to regret? I was busy trying to find Eric with my camera, wanting to test out how the photos would look. I replied distractedly, I won't. As Mark walked away, his back strangely radiated a sense of frustration and anger. 5 minutes later, I jumped off the boulder to find my boyfriend. Eric was in a low-lying area, so I walked down the slope towards him. Due to inertia, my steps quickened, and I practically jogged over to him. I decided to just open my arms and throw myself into his embrace. Eric caught me securely. I waved the Polaroid in my hand and smiled at him. Let's take a picture together. Okay? Sure. Eric called Hank over to take the picture for us. Behind us were flowers, grass, a lake, and green mountains. We found a good spot and angle, and the two of us were frozen in time by the camera. We took several more shots, changing poses each time. For the last one, Hank shouted, All right, you two lovebirds, listen up. This is the last shot for this camera. Get ready. Babe, Eric's deep, pleasant voice came. I want to kiss you. So, just as Hank was about to press the shutter button, I tilted my head up slightly, and Eric lowered his. Our lips met. When the photo came out, we took a look and they were all pretty good. Hank was a decent temporary photographer. Hank covered his eyes, his tone exaggerated. Ah, my eyes. I'm being attacked by 1,000 points of PDA from this couple. We looked at him helplessly as he continued his performance. The others heard the commotion and gathered around. In the end, we all took a big group photo. It was perfect, except for the fact that Mark's face was as sour as a lemon. The night scenery had a unique charm, as if it were veiled in a hazy, soft silver gauze. Eric and I sat on the same large rock from earlier, cuddling as we watched the moon. A cold wind gusted past, making me shiver. Guessing it was about time, he took my hand and stood up, planning to head back to the tent to sleep. The man walking in front of me suddenly stopped. I shook his hand. "What's wrong?" "The night view is so beautiful," he said with a straight face. "It makes me want to kiss you." "Well, it's not like we haven't been kissing whenever and wherever for a while now." With that thought, I wrapped my arms around his neck. Eric leaned down and kissed me. Our lips and teeth met, our breaths intertwining. After a while, he finally stopped but didn't pull away, his breath fanning across my neck. It was ticklish and hot. I was about to say something when I heard the sound of hurried footsteps behind me. The next moment, I was yanked backward. I turned around to find it was Mark. He gripped my wrist tightly, his eyes bloodshot. "Leo, the person you love is me. The person you love is me," he said firmly, raising his voice and continuing on his own. "How could you date someone else? How could you kiss someone else?" I frowned. "What are you talking about?" At the same time, Eric stepped forward and grabbed the hand that was gripping me. "Let go." Mark released me, flung his hand away, and his gaze shifted to stare deadly at Eric, his expression grim. "Eric, don't push it. Have you lost your mind?" A darkness swirled in Eric's eyes. "Mark, don't touch my boyfriend." Mark suddenly laughed. "Don't forget, I just asked you to do me a favor." Eric's face was frosty. "Are we close? I don't have any obligation to help you, do I? Then why did you?" Mark paused. Then, as if he understood something, he glared furiously. "You did it on purpose. You've had your eyes on Leo for a long time, haven't you? You, Mark." I stepped in front of Eric, cutting off Mark's nonsensical tirade. "It's late, we need to rest. You need to calm down and not take your anger out on other people." Annoyed by his attitude and tone, my voice turned cold as well. Mark looked at me with utter disbelief. "Taking my anger out? Leo, are you defending him?" "Duh, if I don't defend my boyfriend, who else would I defend?" Not wanting to deal with him anymore, I took Eric's hand and turned to leave. From behind, I heard Mark's roar, "Leo, I'll be waiting for the day you regret this." Inside the tent, Eric was getting the sleeping bags ready while I sat there in a daze. My head was throbbing. I raised a hand to massage my temples and thought about Mark's crazy talk from earlier. Did I really forget something important? Just as I was thinking, Eric finished preparing the bed and called me over to sleep. Clearing the thoughts from my mind, I crawled over and lay down. "Leo, are you cold?" Eric suddenly asked. It was actually fine, not too cold. But seeing the faint hope and gentleness in Eric's eyes, I changed my mind. A little. He reached out and moved closer, and I instinctively rolled into his arms. Our bodies pressed together, and warmth spread between us. He spoke again, his voice slightly raised and a little husky. "Even if you said you weren't cold, I was still going to hold you." I smiled. "Yeah, you can hold me." The atmosphere heated up, and we naturally started kissing again. We kissed until I could clearly feel someone was getting a little too excited. And no, we can't. The last bit of my sanity returned. I gently pushed against his chest, my voice as thin as a thread. "It's not easy to clean up here." The man's voice was impossibly hoarse. "Whatever you say, babe. I won't move." We held each other for a while to cool down before things finally settled. Sleepiness washed over me, and just as I was about to close my eyes, I heard Eric murmur a question. "Leo, do you like me?" "I do." He bit my earlobe. "Who do you like?" A tingling sensation shot through me, and my body trembled uncontrollably. I took a deep breath. "I like you. I like Eric." The hike ended, and we returned to school. We went back to our campus lives. After we got back, something was up with Mark. He kept sending me messages, saying all sorts of confusing and random things. "I'm not with Alex. We're just regular friends. That dessert shop you used to go to all the time has new stuff. Want to go check it out together?" I wasn't trying to ignore you before. I was just a little busy. "Leo, we've known each other for over 10 years. When you look at me now, do you really not feel anything? Eric isn't right for you. I know you only got with him because you were mad at me. Break up with him, and I promise I won't make you angry again." There were many more messages like this. I didn't get it. Ever since I woke up from the crash, our relationship had been lukewarm at best. I was just responding to the attitude he gave me back then. I thought that was our mutual understanding. So what now? What was he trying to do by saying all this? He was even trying to drive a wedge between me and my boyfriend. I got angry. After warning him multiple times to no avail, he just kept doing his own thing. So I just stopped replying. One day, I got so fed up that I blocked him. I didn't expect him to corner me at my dorm that evening. Leo. He grabbed my arm, his tone certain. You haven't recovered your memory. You're just being tricked by Eric. The person you've always loved is me. We've known each other for a long time, and we were very close. I shook his hand off and stared back at him coldly without a word. He became more agitated. The person you came to the CS department to find was me. The painting you drew was for me, and you joined the club because of me. You and Eric were barely acquaintances before, let alone in love with him. He wasn't quiet, and his voice pierced my head, making it ache. For some reason, I felt a little dizzy. That made me even more impatient. I frowned and retorted, "Where's your proof? Mark, what you're saying now is completely different from what you said when I first woke up." My voice was cold. "Do I need to remind you what you said back then?" "That's because..." Mark paused, a look of embarrassment and regret on his face. My head was spinning more and more. My patience ran out and I turned to leave. But Mark quickly grabbed me. "Leo, don't go." A sharp pain shot through my head. I closed my eyes and lost consciousness. The thick fog lifted, and memories of the past flooded my mind in sharp clarity. I remembered everything. I grew up in an unhappy family. In my childhood memories, my parents were always fighting, blaming each other. After a few years of torturing each other, they finally divorced. I went with my mom, but in reality, I was a child unloved by my parents. Maybe they had loved me once, but that love was eventually worn away by their hatred for each other. When I became an adult, my mother followed my father's lead and left me to go abroad. She almost never contacted me, but I still felt lucky. At least my parents gave me enough money to support my life and education. At least I had met Aunt Lynn's family, Mark and his mom and dad. They were my neighbors. A long, long time ago, when I was a little kid crying on the steps of my house, it was Aunt Lynn who picked me up and took me home. That was when I met Mark. The Mark who would play with me, mess around with me, and say he would always have my back. Middle school, high school, college. Without realizing it, I had long come to see him as my own brother. I'm a shy, slow to warm up person. Even in college, I still habitually relied on Mark. If it hadn't been for that car accident, I probably would have never known just how much Mark despised me. He was willing to tell such a lie just to get rid of my clinginess. As for Eric, before the accident, apart from adding him on a messaging app for a club activity, we had practically no interaction. What was going through his mind when he went along with that lie? When I opened my eyes again, Eric was by my side. He was holding one of my hands tightly, and his eyes were clearly weary. How long had he been waiting here? "Leo, how are you feeling?" His voice was as clear and gentle as ever. I propped myself up on the bed and slowly sat up. Eric supported my side. "Thanks." I was a little dazed. Right, the Eric now was my boyfriend. Was being with me what he really wanted? If he knew I had my memory back, could we still maintain this relationship? Eric was so good to me. I felt that every second of every minute we were together. But when the words of confession reached my lips, a small flicker of fear made me cowardly swallow them back down. "I'm fine now," I asked. "Eric, how long was I out?" 18 hours. After the doctor checked and found nothing seriously wrong with me, I was discharged the next day. Mark still hadn't given up on pestering me. Even though Eric did his best to stay by my side, Mark still managed to find me when he was in class. "I'm sorry, Leo. I was too emotional that day." He looked down, his face full of gloom. "Do you really not remember anything?" My gaze was calm. I remember everything." His eyes lit up, but I didn't give him a chance to speak. "Mark, I am sincerely grateful to Aunt Lynn, Uncle Shin, and you for taking care of me all these years. Thank you. And I'm sorry. I was immature in the past and caused you trouble. I apologize for that, and I promise it will never happen again. Also, you seem to have misunderstood something. I've only ever seen you as a brother. As for the question you asked me before, my answer is still the same now. The person I love is Eric. So what if we weren't close before? The fact that I like him very, very much now is all that matters. Mark stared at me blankly, his eyes suddenly turning red. I had said everything I wanted to say, so I turned and left. I vaguely heard a devastated whisper from behind me. Impossible. On Sunday, I saw a beautiful scenic spot online and asked Eric to go sketching with me. We arrived at our destination just as evening was falling. The perfect time to watch the sunset. We found an excellent spot, and Eric helped me set up my easel. We stood there, looking out at the view, quietly enjoying the beautiful scenery. The sun was about to dip behind the mountains, and the distant horizon was a vast expanse of brilliant orange-red light from the sunset clouds. The shimmering lake surface glinted with the same color. I held my paintbrush, and the scenery before my eyes was captured on paper, stroke by stroke. With the final stroke, I looked at my painting with satisfaction, took it in my hand, and then passed it to Eric beside me. This is for you. While he was still stunned, I emphasized again, for my boyfriend. The painting on Eric's desk in his dorm was one I had given to Mark before. A painting that Mark could dispose of as he pleased was treasured so preciously by him. He really liked my paintings. So, of course, I had to give him a painting that was exclusively his. A wide smile blossomed in Eric's eyes. Thank you, Leo. I love it. We looked at each other, both knowing what the other wanted. We exchanged a gentle kiss. After the kiss, I rested my head on his shoulder and, with a playful heart, asked, "When did we first meet? How did you fall for me? And how did I fall for you?" He only answered the first two questions. The beginning of the semester at the club fair. I was just passing by and saw you leaning over to fill out a form. I watched you for a full 5 minutes and couldn't bring myself to walk away, so I joined that club too. Later, I found my eyes were drawn to you more and more. Besides, how could anyone not fall for someone as talented, good-looking, and cute as you? Leo? It's perfectly normal. My heart felt warm and fuzzy, and I hugged his arm, smiling like an idiot. Same for me, I said. You're so talented, handsome, and charming. It's normal for me to fall for you. One day, when I had plans to meet Eric, I suddenly received a message from Mark. It was a video. In the video, he was completely drunk, slumped over a table and retching. Then, a few messages popped up, probably sent by his friend. Leo, can you come to the bar and talk some sense into Mark? He's losing his mind. No one can stop him. He just keeps drinking. He's gonna get hurt if he keeps this up. He says he only wants you. If you come find him now, he'll go with you quietly. They also sent a location. For the past few days, Mark hadn't contacted me. I thought that, after our talk the other day, he had finally understood. I didn't expect him to be so persistent. I replied, "I'm busy." The reply came back quickly. "Leo, just come for a little while. Mark says he's just gonna wait here until you show up." I frowned, casually typed then let him wait, put my phone in my pocket, and ignored it. I arrived at the place where I was supposed to meet Eric. He was standing under a street sign not far away, looking down at his phone. People were coming and going on the street, but he stood there alone and quiet, looking strangely lonely. I jogged over and naturally took his hanging hand. I smiled, my eyes crinkling. "Let's go." By the time our date was over, it was almost midnight. Eric took me back to his mansion. He opened the door, turned on the light, and before I could react, Eric pressed me against the wall and kissed me urgently. It was fierce and passionate, more forceful than any time before. Feeling the anxiety under his fiery passion, I was stunned for a couple of seconds before I quickly tilted my head up to meet his efforts. After a long time, the long, scorching kiss finally ended. My hands were on his shoulders, and I leaned against him, completely drained. Eric whispered hoarsely in my ear, "Mark texted me today." I looked up. "What did he say to you?" "He said you got your memory back. That you know I lied to you. He also said that between him and me, you would only choose him. He said you were going to go find him today. The man's brow was clouded with a gloomy shadow, his voice low. I froze. I had never seen him look so hurt. He looked like he was about to break. But I came to find you, didn't I? I leaned in and kissed the corner of his lips. Don't listen to his nonsense. When has he ever tried to stir up trouble that I didn't take your side? But I did lie to you. The person you liked before wasn't me. I blinked. And you? Did you like me before? Eric's voice was exceptionally alluring. Of course. I've always liked you. Joy was about to spill out of my heart. I smiled and cupped his face with both hands. Dude, you're way too handsome to be pining in secret. Also, let me clarify something. There was no one else before. You're my first love. The man, who had been slightly dejected and uneasy, widened his eyes slightly. Then he kissed me fiercely again. After the kiss, he rested his head on my neck. Tomorrow's Sunday, no class. I said, we can sleep in as late as we want tomorrow morning. I still hadn't caught on. Yeah, that's true, but why are you suddenly bringing this up? Feeling his scorching gaze, I suddenly understood and stopped talking. Babe, I'm starving. For you. What? I could feel my face rapidly catching fire. He was relentless, his voice a low, seductive whisper. I want to hold you, kiss you. My face was burning hot. I buried my head in his chest, too embarrassed to look at him. I mumbled, well, don't just talk the talk. The words had barely left my mouth when the world spun. Eric scooped me up in his arms and headed upstairs. The calm surface of the water was stirred by wave after wave. I clung to his shoulders, my hazy eyes vaguely seeing the bright, clear silver moon outside the window. Exhausted, on the verge of sleep, a question suddenly popped into my foggy mind. If I had really gone to find Mark today, what would you have done? The hand on my waist tightened. Do you want the honest answer, babe? Yeah. A darkness surged in Eric's eyes. I'd drag you back here and lock you in this room with me, and then I'd bully you, punish you really hard. He got himself worked up just talking about it, and he sweet-talked and pestered me into another round. The night was deep, and the moon remained bright and full. The next morning, I was woken up by the vibration of my phone. My phone was in my pants pocket, and my pants had been tossed 2 meters away from the bed. Even so, the regular buzzing sound still managed to drill into my ears. But I was too tired. I didn't want to move. Eric got out of bed and retrieved my phone for me. He looked at the screen and let out a soft HM. He handed the phone to me. Babe, want to answer? I took it and saw it was a call from Mark. Not just this one, he had called many times last night, but I hadn't even noticed. I was annoyed. I was tired and sleepy and really didn't want to deal with him. So I tossed the phone back to Eric, my voice syrupy. You get it for me. Eric let out a low chuckle, then quickly answered, his hoarse voice laced with obvious satisfaction. Leo's still sleeping. He doesn't want to take your call, so stop bothering him. Even without speakerphone, I could hear the roar from the phone. Eric, what did you do to him? I reached over, ended the call, and put the phone on silent. Then I snuggled deeper into Eric's arms. Let's sleep a little longer. He held me, gently stroking my hair. Okay, go to sleep, babe. It wasn't until a long time later that I heard news about Mark again. Yeah. Before that, he told me a lot of things. He said he knew he was wrong, that he actually liked me. He just hadn't realized his true feelings sooner. He said he regretted it so much, that he shouldn't have pushed me towards someone else. He said he was now living in constant remorse, and it was painful to see me and Eric together. But so what? I had already told him everything I needed to say, and our relationship could never go back to the way it was. After all that drama, I had already decided not to have any more contact with him in the future. Later, the next time I heard about him, it was from classmates gossiping. Alex had exposed Mark on the campus gossip site as a cheater who was seeing multiple people at once. He not only used him emotionally and physically, but also flirted with several other girls while they were dating. The whole thing blew up at our school, and someone even filmed a dramatic video of Alex confronting Mark. But I couldn't be bothered with any of that. I heard it and let it go. I was too busy being all lovey-dovey with my boyfriend every day. We talked about it before, Moving in together after graduation and getting a kitten, Eric asked, "Leo, have you decided what kind of cat you want?" I thought for a moment. I want a long-haired one, but I'm still deciding between a ragdoll and a Maine Coon. It's okay, we have plenty of time to think about it. Yeah, our future. Epilogue. When did Eric first notice Leo? It was on a normal afternoon. The young man with red lips and white teeth smiled shyly, his eyes clear, his features as exquisite as a spirit from the deep mountains. In the moment they passed each other, the passing breeze carried a faint, sweet scent that lingered at the tip of his nose. Eric's heart, which had been calm to the point of silence, suddenly began to beat wildly. It was the first time he knew that humans could really feel such a wondrous sensation. A moment's infatuation, an eternal devotion. He intentionally got closer. Every second his gaze rested on him, Eric was deeply captivated by everything about Leo. A damp, dark thought sprouted and grew in his heart. What if one day such beauty belonged to him? Everyone said Leo liked Mark. Even Eric thought so, until one day, Leo's accident and amnesia gave him an opportunity. In a way, he had to thank Mark for that impulsive suggestion. He had pushed the person right into his arms. To make the lie more convincing, he even gave Eric the painting that Leo had personally painted and gifted to him. Someone so arrogant, so conceited, who trampled on someone else's sincere feelings so casually, didn't deserve that sincerity at all. That's why even when he later came begging like a dog, Leo never paid him any mind again. The time spent with Leo was infinitely more fulfilling than Eric could have ever imagined. The desire in his heart, once a gentle stream, gradually swelled into a vast ocean. To hold him, to kiss him, to do more intimate things with him, it all felt so unreal, like a beautiful dream Eric had woven himself. There was also anxiety. What if Leo regained his memory? Would he be angry, regretful, and curse him as a liar? Or would he leave without a word? Countless thoughts raced through his mind, finally converging into one firm resolve: to keep Leo by his side, no matter what it took. That day, as he stared at the provocative messages from Mark over and over, letting fear consume him, Leo appeared. He smiled at him, eyes crinkling. "Let's go." The sky had already darkened, but in that instant, Eric felt as if everything around him lit up. The Leo who had his memory back also liked him, and only him. There was nothing more blissful than this. The silent night, the dim room, all of it nearly drove Eric to madness. He kissed the young man's body almost reverently. His forehead, the tip of his nose, his lips, his collarbone, his chest. He caressed, licked, and kissed every inch of his skin, marking it as his own. Like a crazed yet restrained believer, he sent the God in his heart to the pinnacle of pleasure. Afterwards, Eric watched Leo, who he had teased until he was weak and soft, his eyes misty, and coaxed him into calling him all sorts of embarrassing names. And with every big brother, hubby, he grew more excited, the blazing fire in his heart burning long and hard. This obedient, pitiful, beautiful young man, only he could see this side of him. In the darkness of the night, Eric pressed the silver-lit youth against his chest, letting his wildly beating heart feel the other's warmth and breath. He gently held his treasure.